everyone. Welcome to another episode of Taking Up Space of Michelle A. Mayer podcast. Always excited about coming for y'all. Today's no different. Today is going to be a precursor to my Bible study tomorrow. I want to give you a foundation today as to what the world was like before the origination, or even, let's just say, what the world was like before the children of Israel came forth out of Egypt. Okay, I want to speak to that because I want to get on Moses and the monumental things that Moses did, because I don't think we give Moses enough credit. Moses did a monumental thing, y'all. This was a bold thing that Moses did, and I want to speak to that foundation before I go into my Bible study tomorrow, so that you'll get the fullness of what I will convey to you tomorrow. Prior to all of this, I did the Bible study or the podcast about these fallen ones and how God created the world, the apocryphic version of it. And the creation story, as far as the Apocrypha is concerned, it's the same thing as the Bible says, but it goes into further detail. The creation story in the Bible shows that these fallen angels, by the time that they fell, the foundation of the earth was already intact. Yet there was no sun. There was no sun. The dome and the light that surrounds the dome that emanates above the earth was already intact. Light had been created, but there was no solar system in place, and there were no suns, or let's just say there were no stars that you could see in the night sky. Because the sun that you see in the sky today, friend, is nothing more than a star. Another person on another planet would look into the sky and see that sun as a star in their night sky. The same way that we see the stars in the sky in the night, they would see our sun as that same thing. That same sun that gives life to everything on this planet. Without that sun, nothing could exist. Not even us. Not the way that we're made. Yet these fallen ones were able to exist without this sun. And they would exist for a long time. It would say 2,000 years they would be in creation before this sun would even be created. God made these fallen angels on the second day of his creation. Nothing was created but fire, earth, water, air, and the light, that spark that emanates in every living thing. That's it. So I want you to think about this. Don't just listen to what I'm saying. I need you to really visualize this. These fallen angels, God created from striking rock striking rock. The friction of this rock is nothing but earth, compacted earth, and it's hardened. And a rock striking rock, these fallen ones are created by. And their sin is that one of them was turned, and the leader felt that he could reach higher than God, and they were all cast down here because of it. It fell out of order. And they're cast down into this dark, wet place of dirt. There's no tree, there's no plant, there's no animal. It's just empty, soundless, void area. And they're, able to survive. And then 2,000 years later, God creates the solar system. The stars and the moon and the sun and all these different things. have on the sixth day, 4,000 years later, God creates Adam. So God has these fallen ones here, and all of them are privy to the creation of everything except for the creation of fire, the creation of water, the creation of the earth, the creation of air, and the creation of that inner spark, that light spark. They see the creation of Adam. They see the creation of the trees. They see the creation of paradise, all the animals. They see the creation and the procession of the stars. They're privy to all of these things. And these are all the attributes and the strengths that they've mastered. All of them. This is what made them so knowledgeable, is their knowledge in these things. All the things that they're knowledgeable of are the things of this earthly realm. They're masters of it. This is all prior to the flood. This is prior to Adam being created. And then Adam is created. They were there when God created paradise. They saw all of it. And then Adam is created. And they are there to see. I don't know if they saw the creation of Adam, but they were privy to Adam being created. And then Adam is put to sleep. And Eve is created. Adam is not even privy to the creation of Eve. The Bible says that he was put to sleep when the creation of Eve occurred. And Eve is created as a buffer, a helpmate to Adam in him navigating this earthly realm. And life goes on, and the Apocrypha speaks to the different texts speak to what life was like, and even the Midrash speaks to what life was like after Adam and Eve were deceived in the garden and the serpent entered into their game. It says that many people knew spirituality. Spirituality was always very prevalent, but people did not honor the one God idea. People honored the different aspects of God because of these fallen ones. Why wouldn't they just show homage to one aspect of God? Because these fallen ones were here when God created all of these different things. All of these different things were not created at one time. They were created in increments. So God would create the trees, and God would create the seeds, and the seeds would grow into trees, and then God would create different animals. And so this was an incremental creation. And each one of these fallen ones will become masters at the incremental creation of these things. And as they were incrementally being created, they would honor the aspects of these creations because there was nothing prior to them being created. The gladness and the happiness that they had of these things coming about made them masters of them. They looked to get the fullness out of each of these creations. And in getting the fullness out of each creation, they would master specific aspects of those creations, pinpointing and focusing in on specific powerful aspects of those creations to get the fullness of it. And they would pay homage to that aspect of it. And it would continuously go on as God would create it, or as God would create and implement new creations in the earth. It's just like now when we have these new rollouts in technology. You know, whatever platform is rolling out, it's a new operating system. We're going to master this now. And then another rollout comes out. We're going to master that. It's the same way with these different aspects of nature and aspects of the God particle within whatever God would roll out. So the world had gotten to a place where everybody is honoring these specific aspects that create an entire body. They create the entire totality of who we are. God created us in his image and in his likeness. So all aspects of nature are just aspects of God as well. And in being able to master them, we are able to master the God aspect within ourselves. As above, so below. As within, so without. And it got to a point where the children were multiplying on the earth. The fall had happened. Everything is all set in order. The children are now at the mercy of these fallen ones. They've been cursed. Their plan has come to fruition. They've created a slot for themselves in a game that was never meant for them. And they're being needed. They need to be needed, because had they not been needed, they would have transitioned from no one paying attention to them. Attention is the commodity in spirit. It's attention based. So where we need money, attention needs attention. Spirit needs attention. Where we need money, spirit needs attention. That's the currency. So for them to stay relevant and not be outdated as an old operating system, they needed Adam to need them. They needed Eve to need them. And they felt as if we could get Eve to need us, all Adam's seed must go through her. We can get him. And I ask that you check out either it was my Bible study or my podcast that I did on the fall of Adam and Eve, and how Satan, the serpent, this serpent came upon Eve in the image of Adam. She thought it was Adam. Now this could be metaphoric, or this could be, literal. But I ask that you look into that podcast or that Bible study. All of these things happened before the children were even thinking of going into Egypt. All of these things happened before the flood. These people had reached a certain level of spiritual mastery before the flood. It is said that the children, their small children, 7 and 8 year old children, knew the science of witchcraft and how to implement witchcraft against other people. It's just like you see on social media, you have these young children preaching, and we think it's funny, and they're out here preaching the gospel. Well, you had young children at the time before the flood that were out here working sorcery against other people, other children, other adults. All had been corrupted. Let's fast forward. God floods the world. He tries to reset the program. He doesn't want to destroy the creation, man. He wants to reset his thinking. He wants him to forget. So he tries to bring down the head count. Reduce the population. He has a small family of people that he's been able to study for a long time to see what their internal makeup is like. Who are they on the inside? Are they good people, or are they wicked just like this world? And God deems them good. And he says, okay, I got this group of people that are good. They really look to align with me. I'm going to reset this world, and I'm going to keep these people only. Now, this flood that happened wasn't the first flood. God had done this many times before. or at least once, let's just say before. But this time it's going to be monumental. He's figured out, okay, I can make this work this time. And he floods the world. Well, after the flood, there were remnants of these fallen ones still around. And God didn't worry about that. He knew that the fallen ones were going to be around. If he didn't, he would have annihilated them. So it's fair to say that God needs these fallen ones as buffers for whatever reason he needs them. Because without Adam or even Noah, let's just say the descendants of Noah having a buffer, they will become just as wicked as the initial creation. It's important that you have a buffer. It keeps you in alignment. There's no way an equation can be balanced or a system can be balanced without there being a positive and a negative at either end. It balances it out. There's no way for things to be any different. But what God was looking to do with the flood was to minimize the head count, to kind of reset things so that it can then now spring forth more in a more balanced aspect, because it was more evil than it was good. The wicked had outweighed the good, and the good were suffering because of the wicked tremendously. They didn't have an advantage. So what God did was he leveled the playing field. He reset everything. And he reset everything to as much good within man as he could, all the while keeping the fallen ones around, whether in the demonic realm, meaning the vesselless realm, the realm of not having a body, or within a body. And he would allow Noah and his descendants to go about life knowing all that occurred prior to the flood, using fear as a way to navigate their tomorrow and their today. And that's what they would do. They would remember all that happened before the flood, and they would be afraid of God. And they would say, I don't want any of that to ever happen again. I see why God flooded the world. We are not going to fall into that situation again. And we will use our experiences as a navigational sequence to help us move forward in life. And that worked for a while. But out of need, out of temporary need, out of quick fixes, temporary gains, they will find themselves bowing to the direction of these fallen ones. All this before the children would ever be led to Egypt. All this before Abram would ever have his encounter with God. By the time Abraham comes on the scene, Abram is a son of Laban, and the children have now digressed back to honoring the different aspects of God. The children have digressed back to using the creative aspects of their mind to form gods within the world, and they would bow to these gods that they themselves will create in the mind and use the solar system to animate and empower. They will use the moon and the sun and the different planetary aspects to give life and power to these creations that they would create with their hand and that they would name with their mind and their mouths. They would give these creations places to live. They would create places for these creations to live in their mind. Give them aspects like physical attributes, and give them aspects like intentions and powers and all these different things. And they would allow them the ability to take up real estate in their mind. So much so that Abram comes forward and he's looking for God, and he's saying, is God in this rock? Is God in the wind? Is God in the moon? Is God in the sand? Is God in the dirt? And the Apocrypha goes through the details of Abram's looking and searching for God. And Abram would see these people, and his father Terah's he would have conversations with his father Terah about these things, and he would see them, and he would say, you know, you're honoring these idols, these figurines, and you're saying that they are your gods, but are they your gods? And he would have these back and forths with Terah. And God would be privy to it. And God would say, there's someone out there looking for me. He desires to know me. And without Abram even knowing it, God is paying attention. And then Terah would lead Abram to the king at the time, and Abram will go through all this whole sequence of events that would torment Abram and make Abram fearful because of Abram's inquisitiveness of God. He suffers. He's tortured. He's attacked. He goes through unnecessary challenges and changes, all because he's inquisitive. He questions, is this of God? Is this truly God? Who is God? What is God? And he finds himself in the most chaotic of situations over and over again. Until he gets to a point where he's so relentless in his walk. He does not give up. He does not get turned. He's not afraid. He doesn't allow the fear to stop him. He doesn't allow the fear to put a yoke on him and control him. He keeps moving forward in his search for God, to the point that God comes upon Abram and he says, I want to partner with you. God doesn't command him. God comes to Abram and says, if you do this, that, and the other, this is what I'll do for you. I look to do a new thing. Because the aspectual part of me that was initially pure and true, that all of my children, even my fallen children, the messengers that I created initially and bound here before your creation knew of, has become convoluted. It's gone its full run. It's gone past the 6 o'clock hour. It's become debaucherous. Now they're adding their creations to it, and it's becoming corrupted. It's outdated. And I look to do a new thing. And I look to do it through you. Fast forward. God comes and he forms through Abram and his seed, the house of Israel. Jacob, being blessed with the ability to understand genetics and the manipulation of these things, would increase his head count tremendously, would be known across the nations as a masterful man in increasing and multiplying head count in people and in animals. If you had Jacob up under you, he could multiply your 2 sheep into thousands of sheep. He's making people rich and wealthy. The rich and wealthy sought Jacob so that they could maintain their wealth and grow it. He and Rebekah would be known as a team that would learn how to master this multiplicity of animals, people, all staying in alignment with the law of God. Not multiplying people in the form of and creating monsters, but multiplying people in the form of just using what God has given you naturally and multiplying it so that it is using it naturally to get the most out of its multiplication. The strongest yield from it. And through Joseph and all that Joseph would do, these children would be safe and they would be able to multiply. Jacob would pass on his knowledge to his sons. You don't think his sons knew how to grow the house of Israel, to expand the head count? How do you think these children grew the way that they did? They had the covering of God, and these people had knowledge. They didn't just default into these things because God blessed them. Friend, God can only bless you so much. God will allow you his covering because you're useful. You got to have something in you to be useful. What is it that you master? What is it that fascinates you, that you allow to flow in your life, that you pay attention to? And now you've paid attention to it so much that you've darn near mastered that thing, friend. And if you haven't mastered it, you're at that precipice where you are, if you focus enough into it from this point on, you will master it quite quickly. All these people that God used had particular aspects within them that they mastered. Joseph mastered the ability to interpret dreams, to be able to lean on his own internal faculties to figure a thing out. Not going around asking people, hey, I had this dream, what you think about it? Hey, I had this dream, what you think? No. But to be able to till it in the soil of his own mind and to come to terms with it and lean on his own knowing to find a truth in a thing without telling anybody. And then coming to the truth of it and then going about life and telling people his truth. When Joseph came amongst his brethren and his father and told them of his dreams, he didn't tell them in a hope that they would be able to decipher it for him. He told them it as if it was law. He had already come to the understanding of them, and now he's proclaiming them to them. That in itself is a powerful thing. Joseph being able to interpret the dream and to be able to lean in on his own faculty speaks to the power of the God within him. It speaks all day and night to his knowing. Being able to trust yourself in the midst of people that doubt you, or they don't even doubt you. They camouflage their jealousy with doubt just so that you doubt yourself. And it never once made Joseph doubt himself. It made Joseph know even the more. Joseph was able to pinpoint that spirit in them and say, oh, they're just jealous. They're envious. They don't doubt me. They're jealous of me. And really, they're not jealous of me. They're afraid of me. This is Joseph. The most important individual in the formation of the children. This knowing that Joseph had would allow Joseph to go before kings. Joseph would be able to stand amongst the most powerful man in the world at the time, Pharaoh, as a slave in jail and consult him in a way that nobody in his court could, all because of the firm foundation that Joseph had within himself, called a knowing. You can't buy a knowing, friend. You cannot fake a knowing. Either you have it or you don't. There's no in between knowing something and not knowing it. That's called a maybe, and that means that you don't know. It's either you know or you don't know. All this before Moses comes on the scene. Moses coming forth through insurmountable challenges. Challenges from the gate. When Moses was born, Moses was sent down a river in a basket. These things happened. Many people think that these are all allegory and that they're all metaphorical. They're not. There were people that did these things. There were people that were out here annihilating people's firstborn children. We were in a whole nother time, friend. We were in a time where spirit dominated everything openly. There was no hidden spiritual system per se. I mean, there were, but really everybody got after it. We're just coming out of a time when you had 7 and 8-year-olds that knew how to do sorcery. It was about the God you serve, and it was about the house you represented, and it was about your representation and your relationship to all of it. That's what made you somebody. Moses being sent down the river and not being swallowed up by crocodiles. These people were worshiping crocodiles at the river. Why do you think they were all down there? Oh, you think they just went to the river every morning because that was just the spot? They were paying homage to the animals that inhabited the river. What animals inhabit the river? Crocodiles. But that's a whole nother story. This is Egypt. And for Moses to be able to be pulled from that river amongst the many crocodiles within that river was a testament. This is why Moses was called into the house of Pharaoh. It was an anomaly. This is why. You think they were just pulling people out of the river? If everybody was sending their babies down the river, you think successfully, you think Pharaoh's daughter would have pulled him out of the river? She'd have had a whole bunch of people she pulled out of the river, right along with Moses. Moses goes into Pharaoh's house and he learns the ways of Pharaoh. He's educated. He knows he's a Hebrew, though. It's very clear. He never is in denial of who he is. He sees firsthand the politics of Pharaoh's house. He sees how organizations work. He sees how powerful people move. He's privy to conversations that powerful people have amongst one another. A tool that Joseph was blessed to have. This is what set Joseph apart, and this is what allowed Joseph success in his later years. Him being a slave in the Potiphar's house allowed Joseph the ability to see how people interact at certain levels. He's privy to the expectations that come with certain levels. Expectations in behavior, expectations in etiquette, expectations in knowledge. He knows how to get his point across without defeating the integrity of what he's bringing forward by clouding it with doubt because he's bringing it forth in the wrong manner. Joseph and Moses will be the same in this way. And it will be, Moses would piggyback off of all that Joseph did. Joseph would lead the way for Moses to be successful. Joseph would lead the way for Moses to be embraced. Had Joseph not done such monumental things in Egypt, Moses could never have come forth and been trusted. Moses sees the priesthood. Moses sees the political environment. He sees who's running the show. He knows it's the priests. He knows how they do it. He knows the priests. He sees them. They're not just a rumor as they are amongst the people. He sees these people. He knows the people that are behind the scenes that are just as powerful. The people that connect you to other people within this house. He knows them. He doesn't just know the face names. He knows those intricate individuals that create the tapestry behind the scene for those face names to be able to come out in the open. for one to even find those space names and put them in position to ascend. And Moses will be nursed in this environment. This is Moses's upbringing. It's all Moses would know until he wouldn't know it anymore. And it would come forth abruptly, Moses' departure from this environment. The same Pharaoh that he's serving and that he has been brought up in his house by his daughter would look to harm him because of what he would do to one of Pharaoh's men in honor of protecting one of his brethren. Moses would come forward and protect one of his brethren that he didn't even have a relationship with. Moses had more of a relationship with the Egyptians and his own brethren. But he saw the discrepancy, the disparity between these two people. Who would better know the way that the Egyptians thought of the Hebrews than Moses? He's up under them. He would be privy to the internal chatter that the people would never hear. He would be privy to the true heart of their intentions. And in him taking up for one of his people that are being mistreated, his people show him no loyalty. They don't protect him. When he comes upon them the next day after protecting one of them, he's and chastises them and says, don't do that. You guys don't fight one another. The day before, he saw an Egyptian attacking one of them and he unalived them. And then the next day he comes upon another group of them and they're fighting amongst one another. And he's saying, don't fight against one another like this. And they say, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to kill us like you did the Egyptian? No loyalty in their own house. All these things are old things. They come with the territory. And Moses leaves. He's running. He doesn't run from his people. He runs because he doesn't trust that his people will protect him from Pharaoh. He's afraid of Pharaoh. He's not afraid of his people. He's afraid that his people will not protect him from Pharaoh. He's afraid that this knowledge that his people has on him, that they will use for crumbs on Pharaoh's table by giving him up. And he leaves. That's the foundation that I want to lead you with today as to the backdrop to what Moses comes into, what leads Moses away from Egypt. Moses is led from Egypt out of fear of Pharaoh. He's not afraid of his brethren, the Hebrews. He's afraid because he has betrayed Pharaoh for love of his people. And now he can never go back to the safety of Pharaoh. And he cannot find safety amongst his people because they truly don't even love themselves. They don't protect one another. So he has to abandon the entire situation. He has to abandon his people. And he has to abandon Egypt. He's a vagabond now. He's on his own. Same way with David. I did the podcast or Bible study on David. David is in the same situation with Saul. Saul has made it so he cannot be accepted in his own house. So now he must turn and go to his house's enemies. This is what Moses does. he turns and he goes to the Midian well. He goes amongst the Midianites, who would be the main people that would come against the house of Israel. This will be our conversation tomorrow. I just want to lead up to it and give you a fundamental understanding of what is going on amongst the children before Moses comes in on the scene. Moses is in an environment before he has an encounter with the God of Israel, where the children are honoring many gods. And this honor of many gods started off in a pure way. They started off with honoring the purest aspects of God in nature and within ourselves, because they were all rolled out incrementally from the beginning. And the fallen ones and Adam and Eve would interact with these aspects quite extensively. But with anything, they became debaucherous. They became corrupted. And Moses would be raised in the environment. He would be raised in the Mecca of polytheism, the honoring of multiple gods. Egypt was not a mighty nation like a war nation like Syria or Babylon. Egypt wasn't that. We will see that in the many chapters to come when the Philistines approach. Egypt was not a warring nation. It wasn't. Egypt was a spiritual Mecca. That was Egypt's strength. Egypt was a spiritual Mecca. Many of the world's religions sprang forth from Egypt. They were all birthed out of Egypt, including Judaism, as we see with the house of Israel. The house of Israel would be birthed out of Egypt. It would find its incubation in Egypt, and it would multiply into a mighty nation. This house of Israel, this Judaistic house, all of it, the Essenes, the Gnostics, all of these different systems of spiritual knowing would all be birthed out of Egypt and the likes thereof. Sumer, Samaria, Mesopotamia, all of them will be birthed out of this. And Judaism will go on to grow into what we call Islam and what we call Christianity. All birthed from Egypt. Yet Egypt has reached her maximum threshold. And during Moses' time, Egypt will begin to decline. You would see that the house, the system, the spiritual system would become corrupted, because now you've got money and you've got establishment and you've got power struggles playing a huge factor. People are making a whole living off of it. It wasn't Pharaoh that had power. It was the priesthood. And Pharaoh was being held hostage by the priesthood. If the priest didn't think the Pharaoh should do something, the Pharaoh didn't do it. If Pharaoh wanted to get something done and the priest didn't agree with it, it didn't get done. They were holding Pharaoh hostage by sorcery. Thick sorcery. See, the systems that we think are powerful now, even your most powerful shaman or your most powerful sorcerer does not have the science that the Kemetic individuals of Egypt had. This is a whole nother system. I'm talking about deep sorcery. The Gnostics, the Essenes, the Nazarites, and all the likes thereof, the sorcery that and the spiritual science that these people knew, you don't see in the world any longer. I'm talking about a level of mastery that you no longer see amongst mortal men. literally. You have people that have ascended to certain levels of power within structures, but they never get bigger than the program. So who has the power? You have people that have ascended to certain levels of power that get humbled. Who has the power? When you get to, thinking of this, when many of us in metaphysical communities and different spiritual communities talk about, oh, you're reading this and you shouldn't be looking at it this way, and you shouldn't be looking at, you're reading your Bible, you shouldn't be reading your Bible, you're reading your Quran, you shouldn't read your Quran, you're reading this, you shouldn't read that. Well, what should we be reading? Does your system convey a level of mastery that supersedes any of these others? Or are they about neck to neck? Are they? Because like I said before, the gods of the old world before the flood, they got put in the dark. Something, somebody, someone humbled them. There are names of gods that have gone nameless. All you see are structures and temples, and all you can do is guess. You have gods that have come forth after the flood that we know nothing of. Gods in the Egyptian Kemetic system of spiritual science that we can only assume about. No more writing in clay tablets like the Sumerians. They were writing on papyrus. These priests in Egypt had it so that it was a brotherhood or a sisterhood where if you didn't know, you just didn't know. And they would rather the science to go unknown than for it to get in the wrong hands. This is why they wrote it on papyrus. You think, oh yeah, they were just they thought they were smart, and so they just wrote it on papyrus because it was a new technology, and they thought they were smart. And little did they know that thousands of years later, that papyrus, when you open that crypt or that box or that whatever it's housed in, and as soon as it hits the air, it's destroyed. You don't think that they wanted it that way? You don't think that in all of their writing and all of their planning and engraving in the walls, that they didn't want you to have that? Friends, when you look at Egypt, you look at the temple of, the Giza Plateau, all these different temples. Those things were put there at that level. It's not like it's you got I know they talk about the temple of Dozier and all this kind of stuff, and it was this, that, and the other. But, friend, the level of mastery that you see there, it was created at that level. They didn't come back and edit it and make it better. That wasn't like, they didn't do a remodel of that. Sure, they built on top of things. Absolutely. But friend, when they built it, it was built and it's still built today. The level of mastery, mathematics, is mathematical mastery at a level that speaks a language. It's not even just flossing. It's not even flexing. It's a language. And it all intertwines spiritually. And it all intertwines genetically. It's a melody. And it all intertwines astronomically, metaphysically. It's humbling. It's just immeasurably humbling. And this is the place where these children would be brought forth out of. And this is the place where Moses will go back to. Friend, you're going to go back to the place of your last defeat. You're going to go back to the place of your last defeat. And you are going to dominate. You are going back to the place of your last defeat, and you will dominate. When you stay in alignment to what God has for you to do, and you hone in on your calling and your gift, and you don't look to the right or the left and get lost in what you see, and you continue to foster all that is within you, and you hone in on all that God has put in you to do, and you perfect that, and you make that your fascination, and you act upon that, God will lead you back to the place of your last defeat, and you will dominate. Because it's not about you. It's about what God has imbued in you, and it's about all that God needs for you to do in being useful to God and to your brethren and your sister. Because I'm here to tell you one thing about God. You can say whatever you want. Oh, this God of Israel has sent these children to war, and he did this and he did that, and he knocked these people out, and he knocked these nations down, and he's done this and that. But I'm here to tell you that this God of Israel blesses those that takes care of his children. This God of Israel blesses those that cares for others. I'm here to tell you, God blesses those that care for others. Just because you don't understand the method of operation in which God moves doesn't give you or me or anybody else the right to judge God or to condemn God. Who are you to condemn it? You don't even know what your next minute is going to be. None of us are in a position to condemn anyone. All we can do, the best we can do, is ponder our paths and look amongst one another for tools and information and insight that we can get to help us ponder our paths better. That's the best we can do. Everything else is a distraction and a bunch of nonsense. I'm excited about my Bible study on Moses tomorrow. Moses has done a monumental thing. Moses, by way of Jethro, did a monumental thing that I don't think many of us give Moses enough credit for. I love to speak to David, but Moses has been on my spirit all weekend. I love to speak to King David and all of David's courage and his triumphs and all that he came out of, because I can resonate very closely to David, but I can resonate very closely to Moses as well. Moses would have been the last person you would have ever thought that God would use. Stuttering Moses. He was tall, gawkishly tall, and he stuttered. He didn't look strong and mighty. He didn't have a whole team of people supporting him. He was an outlaw. An outlaw because he loved his house and he did the right thing at a moment's notice. And because he did the right thing, the unpopular thing, those people that one would never take up for, that would never go out on a limb because of them not knowing that type of love, not knowing what it took to do it, not knowing what it cost the man, not knowing what he would be facing if it ever came out that he did it. Them not ever knowing such luxury, such comfort. Used it against him. Forcing him to abandon both them and his comfort. But he would leave and be led on a journey for 40 years in a wilderness amongst people not of his house. Sure, Jethro was of the Abrahamic line through Keturah, but Jethro didn't honor the God of Israel. Neither did Moses at the time. Moses wasn't an Israelite. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's house. I don't want to go too deep into it. That's my conversation for you tomorrow. Hope it's intriguing enough for you to drop on in and hear a word. You'll love more than you'll ever know. I'll never stop telling you. Be good to yourselves and be good to one another. Peace and love.